And this breaking news, this new video just in, it shows moments after a plane crashed in the middle of this Van Nuys intersection. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Colleen Williams.
And I'm Chuck Henry. Let's get right to it. This plane came down at Van Nuys and Havenhurst, and as you can see, it's right by the Van Nuys airport. NBC4's Michelle Valles talked with some of those who rushed out there to help. Michelle?
Good evening. Well, the NTSB investigators are out here on the scene now. On the scene now, and witnesses at about 1:15 this afternoon tell me they saw a single engine plane, an experimental plane, take a nosedive right here at this intersection. The video you're about to see is of an auto shop manager and owner, the first responders who rushed out to help.
I couldn't get to the body. He was long gone by the time we got there.
The manager of the auto shop took this video on his phone as he ran out to help. The plane wreckage just yards away from the auto shop at Van Nuys and Havenhurst in Van Nuys. Drivers next to the plane crying, yelling in distress. He and his manager worked together to move him back.
There's gasoline, back off.
Officials with Van Nuys Airport tell us they believe the pilot was taking off. But investigators tonight at the scene are not confirming that. Now, coming up at 6, my colleague Gordon Tokumatsu will have more on the witnesses who say they didn't hear any sound coming from that plane's engine. He'll have that coming up at 6. Reporting live tonight from Lake Balboa near Van Nuys, Michelle Valles, NBC4 News.
We are learning new details tonight about the Scottsdale man who died in a small plane crash in Southern California yesterday.
Yeah, he was an accomplished ASU professor and longtime NASA scientist. His work even helped lead to discoveries on Mars. Jessica Flores joins us live with more.
Mark, Linda, Alberto Behar worked for NASA's JPL for more than 2 decades. His death, a huge loss for the science and engineering community. He was known in those communities for his groundbreaking work that led to discoveries on Earth and on Mars.
The pilot's family identifying him as Alberto Behar, an ASU professor. ABC 15's John Erickson is live as students are forced to come to grips with this devastating news. And John, we're learning that this is a guy who really pushed the limits.
Well, no, hey, that's because he explored areas that hadn't been explored before. He was based here at this building on ASU's campus. You can see the satellite and the Earth behind me here. His work took him and his students as far away as Antarctica.
Southland Aerospace Community is mourning a colleague who died in a small plane crash yesterday in the valley. Alberto Behar was flying solo when his plane crashed on Van Nuys Street in Lake Balboa. CBS 2's Christy Fajardo is live with reaction from the pilot's colleagues. Christy.
Elsa, the man from Scottsdale, Arizona, who was killed at this intersection yesterday was an experienced pilot. In fact, according to his bio, he even had a commercial license. And tonight, he's being remembered at JPL, where he worked for 23 years. JPL says during his time there, he worked on the Mars program. He leaves behind a wife and 3 daughters. Live in Lake Balboa, Christy Fajardo, CBS 2 News.
Well, Chuck, at this hour, investigators are still on the scene here trying to figure out exactly what brought this plane down. Meantime, eyewitnesses are telling us they heard something strange right before the crash. What they heard was near silence.
The engine wasn't on at all. At all.
Witness Cheryl Dickerson was with a neighbor seconds before impact. She says they wondered why the single-engine airplane wasn't making any noise.
He happened to look up, he goes, "You think the plane is going to make it?" And I said, "I don't know."
Hey, don't smoke here, bro. Don't smoke here. There's gas.
After gliding silently for a few seconds, the plane nosedived, says Dickerson. Something caught fire after impact, as seen through the thick smoke pouring from the fuselage, captured in this cell phone video. The pilot apparently killed instantly.
There were no other passengers on board, and there were no injuries to anyone on the ground.
That last part, no one injured on the ground, seems miraculous, say some witnesses.
Out, the young lady was still breathing, and tried to use a towel to cover her up, but the police were and the ambulance were already here.
Clashes today in the dispute between Cliven Bundy and his supporters and the Bureau of Land Management.
Take a look at this video that we have from earlier this morning. You can see the protesters there screaming as contractors try to leave the area. Now, one woman gets past an officer and she is then thrown to the ground as the truck passes by an officer. Well, that's when things got out of control. Ammon Bundy, then you might be seeing from the top left of your screen, he drives up on an ATV toward a dump truck, and the dump truck actually collides with his ATV just a little bit, and when an officer sees him pressed up against the truck, they start fighting. You see Ammon then trying to kick a law enforcement dog, and then after that he is tased a few times, we're told.
That last part, no one injured on the ground, seems miraculous, say some witnesses. Our cameras captured this word, experimental, printed on the inside of the wreckage. Tonight, FAA investigators will have to determine if that had anything to do with what brought this plane down. Brought this plane down. And back here live where you can see the wreckage still sitting here at the corner of Havenhurst and Van Owen. Probably a good idea to avoid this intersection if at all possible this afternoon. The pilot's body was removed about an hour ago. He is identified only as a man in his 40s out of Arizona. Reporting live from Lake Balboa, Gordon Tokumatsu, NBC4 News.